Hello, welcome back again to this, our latest live interview with Ecotourism Australia accredited members. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Camilla Hamilford of Paperbark Camp in Jervis Bay. Hi Camilla, how are you today?
Hey Simon, I'm good, thank you. Great to be here.
So I think you've picked a beautiful spot. We were just saying that it can be a little bit on the windward side when we're doing these live interviews, but it looks like a beautiful, still calm, sunny day up there at the moment.
It is an absolutely perfect autumn day, and there's not a breath of wind, and the sky is blue and sun's shining, and it's sad we have no guests here.
I know, I know. But you are enjoying the peace and tranquility of the place for yourself, which I must imagine is a certain benefit for some time at least.
Yes, that has been a treat. After 20 years of having the property and always having people here, I have to say we have had some fun times in the last few weeks with the family here, just treating it like our own our own lounge room and backyard. It's been gorgeous.
So on that note, so tell me your background, your connection to the place, and just I think you just literally drove down. So its connection to Sydney as well.
Yes. So Paperbark Camp was started just over 20 years ago by my our parents, Irina and Jeremy Hutchings, who dad's an Englishman originally, mum's from Sydney, and we all grew up in Sydney. But about 25, 30 years ago, they decided to, after being inspired by travels in Africa, they decided to follow their dreams, and they'd stayed in tented accommodation there and thought that they would like to try and do something like that for themselves here. And so after a few years of research, they settled on beautiful Jervis Bay. So we now have that connection, and I actually do live sort of half in Sydney and half in Jervis Bay. So and Jervis Bay is just a few hours drive south of Sydney, so I go backwards and forwards a lot.
So tell me a bit about Jervis Bay. I mean, it's a lot of people have heard of it, but you described it really beautifully when we spoke yesterday. Just tell me a little bit about its landscape and what people expect when they get there.
I think Jervis Bay, I mean, people have heard a bit more about it in the last 10, 15 years, but certainly when we first opened, it was very much a well-kept secret for a lot of, particularly people from the southern suburbs of Sydney, I think, who traditionally had holiday houses down here. It's a very wide bay. It's 100 square kilometres. At the entrance, it's got some rather spectacular headlands and then a small island in the middle, which tends to stop. It doesn't have any waves, so unlike so many places on the coast, it's actually very calm, a little bit like the Mediterranean. And it's particularly unspoilt, despite the fact that years ago there was plans for a nuclear plant, and I think it was there was also talk of it once at some stage being a capital, but and a lot of it is part of actually the Australian Capital Territory. The Wildiaries National Park is part of that. So, but it's just still, it's been protected. And so, it's really quite remarkable to be close to such a big, metropolis like Sydney. And I think people just are really surprised to come here and see the coastal landscape as it, would have been 250 years ago before European settlement. So I think that's what makes it so special. You can really look out. There's no development on the coastline really, and it's as it would have been.
And so you were saying, yes, Jervis Bay is effectively part of the Australian Capital Territory, isn't it?
A small part of it, yes, yeah, yeah. A small part of it is kept as, and there's a small naval base as part of it, which sounds probably horrifying to people, but it's actually quite quaint, and fabulous officer training facility that they have there, which is all part of that peninsula. And we very rarely see ships in here or anything, so it's it's there, but you wouldn't know it there. But it does have very much the Defence Forces. There is a tradition on this part of the coast around Nowra. And of course, also the Wreck Bay Aboriginal community is over that side as well, and they administer and look after the beautiful Wildiaries National Park, their award-winning national park. They've been recognised for their efforts. So,
So tell me about your eco accreditation. So you're a member of Ecotourism Australia. What do you have to go through? What are sort of your annual tasks to remain part of that group, and what do you do to contribute?
So we've been part of the Ecotourism Association of Australia for nearly our whole existence, so nearly 20 years. And we started off with the more regular accreditation, and then sort of 5 years afterwards went for the advanced eco accreditation, which requires a little bit more adherence to consideration to interpretation and education regarding the environment. So we're really here to try and get our guests to consider their impacts when they're not just travelling, but also in their own regular lives. So it's part of our ethos and philosophy. It helps with all of our decision making in terms of when we're purchasing. And yeah, we get checked out every year we renew and assure that we're still adhering to those principles. And then every few years, someone does come down to check it out and see where we're at with that. So I think 20 years ago, ecotourism and sustainability was a new thing, whereas now, I mean, it's part of so much of the building and planning process that most people go through. So one of our things has been to try and see where we can always improve. What we do to sort of change, to do things in a better way that minimises our impact. So it's always part of our thought process.
Now, give me some examples. What do guests see when they're there? What are things that you've done that I guess tell that story and extend through the experience, and hopefully they take home something with them as well.
On arrival, I mean, we keep it, you can probably see behind me, we do try and keep it as natural as possible. And, we try not to sort of massage our natural environment too much and leave it pretty much as it would be. Although in this few weeks while we've been closed, one of our big jobs has been to try and remove the asparagus fern, which is very much an unwelcome guest. So things like that we're obviously trying to keep on top of. And, we're lucky that after a long time we've still been very good. We've had people come from bush care and things who say we've done a pretty good job of keeping it as natural as possible. I think immediately they're struck by that it's not a manicure. There's no manicured lawns and things. So, and I think straight away that puts them in that frame of mind that they're appreciating the natural environment and then our place in it. In terms of, I mean, the building, everything has been built to, you can't see unless I turn my camera around, but I mean, we've kept all of the main trees as much as possible. Because we're 20 years old, were built before a lot of the bushfire zonings and laws were changed. So it's very unique in that way, and it's quite difficult to build in this way again. And then we keep inside all of the tents. There's a compendium which has information about the local environment, even hints for recycling and what they can do. We still only have solar powered solar power, 12-volt solar power in our tents. So it's pretty much just lovely natural, lighting. And, when they're dining, etc., our choices for our wine list, for example, we like to stick to just regional or at the most, maybe to Canberra, orange, etc. And just getting people to think about, their purchases and the miles that it takes to kind of purchase things and keep everything as much Australian as possible. So I think, that's, everything that they see, they can see that there's been some consideration and thought as to why it's chosen, how it's been chosen.
And if we've got any viewers who are not Australian, and given my interests and background, I'm already hearing sulphur-crested cockatoos in the background. We had I think they just flew by. We had yellow-faced honeyeaters calling a minute ago. They're a migratory bird that comes, moves up and down the east coast as well. You're sitting on there in complete silence, surrounded by the bush. You're on 12-volt power, which I guess means you're not generally on a generator. You're using, a lot of the time, your power is quiet?
Actually, no, I think you're going to hear a helicopter any second, actually, ruining the silence.
It's inevitable, isn't it?
So no, in fact, our tents are on the 12-volt power, but currently our main building with the gunya is, sorry, you are going to get a helicopter go past.
Look at that.
Because we're on the banks of the creek, they often use it to navigate between out at the coast and back into Nowra. So So yeah, so the gunya is actually on mains power, but it's actually very limited. So we use gas, and we do part of our plan in the next year in terms of is to make sure that in fact because of our sunlight, and we're actually right here in the bush, it's often been questionable as to how much we can run off it. But I think in the advances of solar power and things, we're ready to in fact turn the whole building over to solar power. So
It's really exciting. It's exciting that to think that people could go on holiday for a weekend or a week and visit somewhere like that. And I would probably imagine that these buildings, a lot of them, are going to be more sustainable than the houses that we all live in many cases. It's really interesting to see tourism being able to take that lead and showcase that. I think it's a really wonderful thing you're doing, and also to hear the objective of continual improvement as well, which is really important.
yes, I mean something we just brought in recently was to encouraging people to, especially we do find European visitors. They are really conscientious, and when they're travelling, and they often have asked about how they can get down to us without using a car. So we're now providing complimentary bikes for those who take a train down to our closest station, and then we transfer them, and we do complimentary bikes for them. But for those who've driven, we say we do charge them a small fee to take the bikes out for the day. But things like that, to just again, it's just putting that thought in someone's mind and saying, oh, that's a good thing to do. And it's often not about the money for a lot of people. It might be just about the idea that, in fact, that would be a nicer way to get around while we're there.
That's absolutely brilliant. I've never heard anything like that. So complimentary bikes for anyone who takes the train to Jervis Bay to come and visit you, but a charge for anyone who drives. I think that's just lovely. But it's such a simple thing, and I suspect that you get a lot of people taking that up. Look, Camilla, I could again, with all these interviews, I could sit and talk all day. There's so many different things we could chat about, but we've only got limited time. I wish you very well. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk and to hear about you. Obviously, anybody who's watching, please jump onto Paperbark Camp's website, follow them on Facebook, do the same with us, Ecotourism Australia and Wildiaries. Follow us all. We're all sharing each other's stuff, so you'll hear about everything. Yeah, take heed and note of Camilla's wise advice. I think we can all do a lot more to improve our environmental footprint over time. Camilla, thank you very much. Have a great time, and I do wish you and hope that you can have visitors again quite soon.
Thanks very much, Simon. It's a pleasure to be here and to meet you.
Quite all right. Me too. Thanks.